It is my privilege and pleasure on behalf of the UJ Library to welcome you all to the second day of our first virtual teacher librarian webinar. We are honored to be joined by our Executive Director, Prof. Maria from ARP, our guest speakers, Dr. Lorette Jacobs, Mr. Bilal Kathrada, Dr. Graham Dampier, and Dr. Jacqueline Bachela. Our next speaker is Mr. Bilal Kathrada, who is in the Student Support Division at IT Varsity. The title of his presentation is Pressing Reboot on Education. He is an ed tech entrepreneur and is the founder of IT Varsity. Mr. Bilal Kathrada, thank you very much, and I now hand over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for taking the time to attend this webinar. I've listened to the previous two speakers, and I've already learned so much about what's going on at the universities and the amazing work that people at our universities are doing to facilitate better learning for our learners. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk about this. When I started teaching, this was my constant nightmare, where I found that learners were not really engaged and they were struggling with the concepts I was teaching. And I was teaching maths and coding, and I was teaching kids everything from high school through even some of the universities. And I want to describe how I've overcome some of my challenges here, because there's a lot of teachers and lecturers here, and I want to share my experiences. But before I go there, I mean, we've heard about the fourth industrial revolution so far. We've heard Dr. Jacobs talking about IoT and the fourth industrial revolution, but I want to drive home exactly to what extent this is affecting us. So I want to talk about disruption that's going on in the world. And I don't think many things can put forward really how much of disruption we're living through than the three facts that I'm about to give you. Fact number one, did you know the top 10 in-demand jobs this year did not exist 10 years ago? Now take a look at some of the job descriptions or the job titles on the screen. We've got things like driverless car engineer, a data scientist. I mean, if you take about 12 years ago, if somebody said the word iPhone, today you know what that means. But 12 years ago, you would have asked the question, yes, you phone who? So it sounds like an incomplete sentence. But that's indicative of the rate at which technology is changing and changing our world and changing our very language, just the way that, the things, the terms that we speak on a daily basis. So that's the first thing. Second fact, did you know 50% of today's jobs will not exist in 10 years' time? Now, take a moment to take this in. In a decade, half of all the job descriptions that exist today will not exist in just a decade's time. Now, this is something hard to imagine, that all of these jobs are going to become so obsolete that there's not even going to be a job description for them anymore. There's going to be completely new jobs that we don't even know about. Now, let me give you a simple example, right? I want you to think about something. In the old days, and I'm talking about the 1980s, when we needed to watch a movie, how did we do it? We needed one of those clunky old VCR players, and we put in those huge black cassettes in there, and we would press rewind, and we would have to play. Now, here's something to think about. When last did you see a VCR player or one of those cassettes? It's been a while, right? And yet that was a multi-billion-dollar industry that employed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people across the entire supply chain, right from manufacturing through distribution and wholesale and retail, and even writing the movies onto those cassettes. It was a booming industry. Where's that industry today? it completely disappeared. Now, if you want to watch a movie, we simply stream it from the web. So it's not, when you think about it, within the context of the VCR industry, then this second fact is not too far-fetched when you think about it. And I'll explain more about it a little later. Fact number 3, did you know we are going to see more tech innovation in the next decade than we saw in the previous century? Now, isn't this amazing? Think about that previous century for a moment. What kind of a century it was. It was no ordinary century. It was a century of the most technological advancement in the history of mankind. And yet some scientists say that we're going to see more tech innovation in the next decade. How can a single decade match an entire century? And that too, the 20th century, such an amazing century, the one in which we saw computers and the internet and flight and everything that we know, mobile devices, everything we know about technology came about in the previous century. How is this even possible? Now, it's possible because of this word here, innovation. Innovation is what is taking place right now at a much faster pace than ever before. But then you would say, yes, there was innovation in the previous century. What's so different about this century? Let me show you by means of a picture. This is what's different. Now, the guy on the screen is Lee Sedol. He is, or was, depends on how you look at it, the world Go champion. And this guy was unbeatable, or still is to an extent unbeatable. He is known as the best player in recorded history of the game. Now, let me tell you about the game Go. You can see on the screen there's a board and there's some beads. It's a very simple game, and the rules are very simple of the game. You can learn the rules within 5 or 10 minutes. But what's so challenging about the game Go is that it requires an amazing amount of creativity and intuition to play and to win. So the rules are simple, but the actual play and to actually beat another person requires a whole lot of thinking and intuition. And that is the main reason why for so many years, even though we saw a chess computer game, we saw drafts computer games, we saw such advanced computer games, but we never saw a Go computer game. Why? Because Go could not be played using just logic and algorithms. It required a certain level of intuition. So for decades, scientists couldn't build a machine that could play the game Go, except until 4 years ago, when some artificial intelligence computer scientists at Google decided, let's make this machine that we will not code the game Go into, but we will give it artificial intelligence machine learning algorithms whereby it will be able to teach itself the game of Go. It was a long shot, and they admitted it, because that was the only approach that they could see, because there was no way to program every move of the game Go into a computer. There is no computer on earth that can manage that level of, that amount of data, because they say that the total number of moves in a single game of Go is equal to the number of atoms in the known universe. So now you understand what I'm saying. You understand the complexity of this game Go, and why computer scientists couldn't make a machine, a program that could run Go. Anyways, they gave this machine, its name is AlphaGo, this artificial intelligence machine that they created, and they gave it machine learning algorithms, and they showed it tens of thousands of games of Go being played. And this machine, just by observing the games being played, believe it or not, it learned the rules of the game all by itself. And then it started to play the game against itself. So day in and day out, it started to play itself. And then they did some human testing, and it beat the first few human beings that it played. And so the designers got a little ambitious. They says, well, let's bring the world European champion to play against this game. And surprise, surprise, the machine, AlphaGo, wiped out the European champion. So he says, well, let's get a little more ambitious and bring in the world champion. And that's when they brought this guy, Lee Sedol. He was very confident. The bets were all in his favor, that there's no way that a machine could beat this guy. He was untouchable. But long story short, look at the expression on his face right now. He's in the middle of that game and he's looking very stressed out. And he had reason to be, because he was getting wiped out. And he lost 4-1 against AlphaGo. At the end of it, when he was interviewed, he said it was eerie, it was strange playing this game against this machine, because it was as if it was learning my every move, my every tactic, and using that against me. It was as if I was playing myself. And that was a key moment, not for the game Go, but for innovation. Because for the first time in history, we found, or we saw, that a computer is able to be, to an extent, creative and intuitive and beat a human being at the game Go. And that, my friends, is what is driving the fourth industrial revolution, what I like to call rise of the machines. Because now we're seeing machines being able to do things that they never could do before. But what's the driver behind this? What is the power behind this fourth industrial revolution? I mean, we know the first, second, and third, but the fourth, the driver behind the fourth industrial revolution is two things: cyber-physical systems and artificial intelligence. That last one, AI, is what is making all the difference. Now, before we go there, what is a cyber-physical system? A cyber-physical system is a machine that lives in the real world and is aware of its surroundings. Like, for example, this one. This is the most beautiful, beautiful cyber-physical system that you can find, the Tesla Model S. And this car is not just remarkable because it's battery powered, but also because it is a self-driving car. It is aware of its surroundings and it can navigate itself through its artificial intelligence and the systems that it has built in. So artificial intelligence is what is making all the difference. So coming back to the point about the next decade seeing more innovation than the previous century, and we get to the bottom of it now. The previous century was driven by human beings. Innovation of the previous century was driven by human beings. We were alone. We did it by ourselves. The innovations of the next decade are going to be driven by human beings, but with artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is going to be playing a very key role in innovations in the next decade. And that's what's going to make all of the difference. But then the question arises that, you know, with all this fuss around AI and the fourth industrial revolution and the rise of the machines and rise of technology, what's going to happen to us? Is there even going to be place in the world for human beings? Or are we going to face this dystopian future like in the movie Terminator? Let me put you at ease. Let me put you at 100% ease. There is nothing to worry about. Just as with technology, trends come and go. Think about the VCR market. Nobody even bothered what happened to all the people that were working there. Why? Because they moved on to other things. They moved on to CDs and DVDs and other technologies. So technology, yes, it takes away certain opportunities, but it brings other opportunities. That's what's great about it. And we are going to see lots and lots of opportunities that are created by technology. Given time, I would have given you guys some examples, but you know, I don't want to go over time. But I want to jump into what can we do to be ready for those opportunities, to seize those opportunities, no matter who we are, what field, what space we are in, whether you are working in technology or you're working in education or in the medical field. Last week, I actually spoke to a group of doctors about the innovation and disruption taking place in the medical industry, in the healthcare industry. But what do you need? Well, the next two slides, this one and the next slide, are going to show you exactly that. First of all, and look, I can go into a lot of detail about these things, but I'm kind of going to glaze over it for now. The first thing we need is mental elasticity, that the ability to accept change as we see around us, not a rigid mindset that makes us resistant to change. Next, creativity. Creativity covers everything from art to graphics and color and dance and music, but also it relates to looking at things differently from other people. So you don't have to be an artist or a graphic designer to be creative. You can be a teacher to be creative. That's entirely possible. And creativity somehow flows into problem solving, because you need creativity to solve problems. And then with problem solving skills, we need people skills, and here's the irony of it all. The more automated and the more technologically driven our world becomes, the more we will desire human interaction. Here's a real world example, right? Why do you think a handmade pair of shoes is more valued than a factory made pair of shoes? It's because some master craftsperson took the time to create this very unique object that you are willing to pay that much more to purchase versus something that just came out of an assembly line. Think about that. So we're going to need more and more people skills. And critical thinking. I define critical thinking as asking the question, why? Why is the state of the world it is as is right now? Why are things the way they are? Why is the status quo as is? And how can I change it? And finally, obviously, we need technology skills. That's so much for a universal perspective. But since there are majority educators here, what do we need as far as education goes? What do our learners need? Now, this is a problem that I experienced personally in my teaching career. I found that my learners found that learning is unengaging, not interactive, impersonal, inflexible, and, well, you can read the rest. And let me give you an actual example, and then I will finish off. I was teaching coding at one of the colleges here in Durban, and I had to teach the language Java programming, and I'm a certified Java programmer. I'm a software engineer by profession. So I can say that to an extent I'm good at what I do. But I noticed that when I teach my classes, my learners seemed to understand. These were first year learners of a degree program. They would understand, but I would give them tasks to do, and those tasks were just not getting done. The day after, they would come back and the work wasn't done. So I interviewed them and I asked them, guys, what's going on? And one of the learners said it to me very, very nicely. He says, the time when I need you the most, you are not there. And that's when I realized what he's talking about is when it is time to do those tasks, which is at home, there's no teacher support or very little teacher support. I mean, I'm there on email and WhatsApp, but there isn't that level of support. And then that gave me an idea. And this was actually my foray. This was about a decade ago. It was my foray into the world of e-learning, the fascinating, wonderful world of e-learning. And what I did was I decided to flip my classrooms, not physically, but I mean from a learning and teaching perspective. And what I did was I made videos of my lessons and I put those out on YouTube. And then the homework became watching those videos, and the exercises were done the next day in class under my nose. Now, they call this the flipped classroom model, where learning is done at home, but homework is done at school. Well, that's one flavor of the flipped classroom model. There are other flavors. And what happened then was phenomenal. It totally changed the entire, the entire atmosphere around my lessons. And also it boosted my learners' overall performance. And not just that, but my videos were picked up around the world because they are on YouTube. And to date, I think they're sitting on 80 or 90,000 views. I mean, these are videos that I just put out for my own learners, but I found that people around the world were benefiting from these. So in doing this little experiment, what I did was I turned all of these negatives into positives. Actually, I didn't do it. We did it, myself and my learners, because it was with their feedback that I managed to do all this. Now, if you ask me, what is the best way to empower South Africans so that we eliminate poverty in this country, we close that wealth inequality gap, and we give our youth a fighting chance to compete with their counterparts across the world, then I'll tell you one word, and that word is education. We have to educate our youth. We have to overcome the challenges that face education, no doubt. It's not just as simple as saying education. You understand that we have to overcome the challenges, and we have to make our education engaging and something that our learners expect out of their world. You know, it's like the late Sir Ken Robinson said once. He said, we're taking learners. Look at the background of these learners. They are digital natives. They were born into a world with technology. They love technology. They thrive in technology. And in the words of Sir Ken Robinson, we sit them down in the class and force them to do clerical work when they're not even cut out for that. That's not even something they prefer doing. Now, I wanted to give you an example here, but I'm running out of time. This is actually a very interesting story of an MRI machine, but you know, we'll come back to that at some stage if we have some time. These are some of the most in-demand jobs of the future. This is what is going to be in demand in the near future. You know, we spoke about those new jobs, new job descriptions that are coming out. The vast majority are going to be in this space. Look at number 13. Yep, educators are going nowhere. You know, there's a saying I came across somewhere that technology will never replace teacher, but teachers who know technology will replace teachers who don't know technology. So the means of education of the future is going to be technology, and this is what is the key factor here. And then you can look at, you know, the other fields that are in demand. Now, I just want to show you an example of what's going on, and I'll share this slide with you again, so you can keep in touch. I'd love to hear from you on social media. As you can see, I'm on pretty much every channel. I want to know what you want to know about. You know, if there's something that I can help and do some research around. But let's go and look at a demo. I'm going to go online, and thanks to those initial learners that I was lecturing, this is what it's evolved to. And the reason I'm showing you this is because we are developing something, or we have developed something similar to this for schools, and you are all invited to bring your schools onto it. It's out there at the cost of free. So basically, we are using, as you can see, all the wonderful tools that technology gives you in learning. This is actually a coding program. Okay, start coding with HTML, and you can see we've got lots of videos, and then each video has some text and notes, and we give little coding snippets there, some tips, and we move on from page to page. For those of you that are involved in e-learning, you probably already guessed that this is Moodle, but obviously we've customized it quite a bit. This is the learning management system of ID Varsity. Now I'm going to show you something else. Oops, yes. This is the platform that we've built for schools, and at the start of lockdown, we built this platform and we just put it out into the world for free for all schools to use. I'm going to log in. And this is the learning management system. As you can see, there's a dashboard on the left that will show all the, well, a menu bar on the left and a dashboard in the center that shows all the subjects. So if you want access to this learning management system, like I say, it's free. For your school, please get in touch with me. So once again, I'm just going to put my contact details there. I've almost run out of time, and with those few words, I will thank you, and I thank University of Johannesburg for having this fantastic webinar and for giving me the honor of contributing to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bilal Kathrada, for your very intriguing presentation. I am certain that it made a lasting impression on the attendees, including myself. I was quite intrigued by the platforms that you have developed for the schools. It's quite a brilliant initiative for the schools. And your insights and you sharing the power of AI with us. And like the first speaker, Dr. Laurette Jacobs, also making us aware that, we shouldn't look at technology as a threat, but rather look at it as an enabler. Thank you very much.
The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.